how you want to direct someone's eye, is something that painting is much more able to do, which I think just becomes much more of an immersive experience for people when they go to museums or when they look at art.
Welcome back to the Flying Fruit Bowl, a platform dedicated to the discussion and exploration of art and the creative process. In today's episode, I had the chance to talk to the incredible Calvin Lai. Calvin is an artist based in San Francisco, whose work covers a wide range of subject matters such as figures, cityscapes, and still lifes. His style of art sits somewhere between the real and the abstract, and he recently had a solo show at a Bend Gallery in February. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Calvin, so much so that there may be a second part in the future. I really hope you enjoy it too. Okay, so the best place to start is where I start with everybody, is just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became an artist.
Okay. Well, I mean, my mother was an artist, and so I guess I got a lot of influence from her. She's a watercolor colorist mainly, but before she was doing a lot of drawing. So I believe being around that just gave me the exposure to explore the arts, or at least be interested in the arts. In terms of just my own beginnings of it, it was pretty much as a child. I remember just copying Snoopy cartoons and stuff like that, and different Curious George, those sort of things, and so it's like I was creating whatever, I was just copying those, and then it just kept going after that. Yeah, I mean, that's the early part. I think the real change happened, in terms of how I really just started dedicating to it, was when I was a kid. I was copying a picture, but I saw like pencil drawings in this game that my brothers and I were getting into, as but these pictures are very realistic. I mean, it was all like sci-fi and stuff like that. But I mean, the thing about them is that they had a strong amount of light and shadow, and and the shading was perfect. It was very realistic pencil drawings, and so I started trying to copy those. And after that, that changed my idea of what one can do with art, and that's pretty much how I started.
That's cool, because your work has a very interesting quality to it.
Hmm.
And the one thing that really fascinates me about it is your use of kind of reality and the idea of realism. Because I was talking to the last artist I interviewed was an artist called Mark Thompson, and we were talking about it, and he was talking about not your work necessarily, but people who do similar to you, and it becomes like the painted world as opposed to the physical real world, or you depicting the real world. Could you talk a
Right.
bit about reality and realism in your work and how you see that in regards to what you paint?
Yes. Yeah, in terms of like realism, I mean, I consider myself a very observational artist, and so I mean that's how I had been in the beginning. And so what I wanted to do was recreate what I saw on paper. I thought that was something that it always fascinated me. But I think in terms of my trajectory with like realism itself, is in a way to do pretty much what I mean. I can relate to what you're saying in terms of creating your own reality through a foundation of realism, because what I've begun to do, and what I began to do, and what I'm continuing to explore, is shaping the realism, but then also breaking it apart enough to where there's enough abstraction where, I mean, it's breaking it apart in order to just uh, create like your own sense, own perception of reality, and also what the most essential parts of that reality are, especially when it comes to painting, because I mean, you, you can see something and try to break it down, but breaking it down to the most essential part of what it is so you can reinterpret it successfully is very, I mean, that's very fascinating to me. So I mean, realism is something that, you know, I think for myself, maybe opposed to much of the art world, I don't know, but realism is a medium which is continually expanding, because it all boils down to an artist's own perception of what their individual reality is. And so, I mean, of course, you get people who have styles who are similar, so their perception might be similar. But I mean, everyone has their own unique style when it comes even to realism, even like hyperrealism. I think, I mean, it's just becomes a carbon copy of very literal world. you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, realism is something that's very important. I've never really been able to do much abstract stuff, but I guess I'm trying to abstract it, which is, you know, I guess kind of like the step I'm trying to get into.
Yeah, because your work sits in a really interesting section between the two. It's kind of both abstract and real at the same time. And I think that's what really fascinates me about that and about such kind of work, is that it's just interesting because it's like a vision of the world, but then yet it's also not a vision of the world. And it makes me think it's more emotional than physical.
That's a I appreciate that, because the thing is that the trap of realism is that it's a very technical, it's a very technical part of art, and so it's like when it's a very technical part of art, the brain will take over too much with the creative process. Not, well, I mean, not too much, but will take over. I mean, it depends on the degree that you like your left or whatever your brain to take over the process. And so I mean, I always want to instill an emotion into a piece. So I mean, I mean, that those expressive marks and the abstraction of realism is something that is I think the method that I want to go for towards instilling an emotional content into my work. So that the abstraction part is like something that that's the powerful thing about abstract art, because it's all, I mean, not all, I don't do abstract art, so I can't really like say exactly you know for certainty what it is, but I mean, it's like there's a lot of it that's based off of emotion, you
Yeah.
know um the way that the emotion that they're trying to do in order to complete a feeling or a concept. I don't know, it's a very interesting thing, but um I mean, it's powerful in the sense that it understands that movement of marks and movement of paint will create an emotion, and I think that's very powerful. You know, with any painting, I try to do that in my work. Try to create that emotional momentum that the medium can create.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. But I see that in your work personally. I think it definitely you do a good job of doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually curious to know that, do you think that the best art is art that's more personal to the artist?
Um, I think the best art has to have like, yes, it has to have a personal nature to it, to some degree. Even the most realistic artwork, you know, even the most random type of abstract work. It's both of those, I think, have, yeah, it has to be personal in order to be powerful, I think.
So the interesting thing about your work also is that you have, you approach quite a different, well, quite a number of different subject matters. You paint figures, you paint still lives, you paint cityscapes, and I don't know if you can talk a little bit about how you decided to kind of expand your focus upon such subject matters as opposed, and how you move through them without kind of, doing one okayish and doing the other one like better, or kind of how do you maintain such a good level of quality on each particular subject matter?
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I feel actually different levels of security with all those,
Okay.
actually, but like, in terms of just, the I've always kind of wondered, in terms of art, and this is a little bit of a divergence, but it's like, there's a lot of artists who paint, one thing,
Yeah.
one genre. And, there's always this question of artistic style, and I've wondered if it's someone's artistic style is defined by the object that they paint, or the actual style of how they
Ah.
approach, everything. And so for me, I guess I don't know what the art world agrees in. I think the art world might agree just like the subject matter, but like, with, of course, a similar handling of the subject matter. But like, for me, it's like it's the style of 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 painting, and approaching and breaking down the world. And so it's like, in terms of like all the, I used to be just pretty much figurative, portrait and figurative. But in terms of like just looking at everything else, trying to instill my style on all those other things is like one thing, an intellectual challenge, and that's like something that really fascinates me. But also just, you see the world the same way wherever you look, and
Yeah.
so just seeing like, whatever, fruit setup or something, just whatever, you can break it down the same way. The way when I'm seeing these sort of things, even landscapes, it's just like breaking it down to the most basic shape at first, or essential quality, and then filling in all the details. It's like that's sort of like uh, you know. So like, in terms of those genres, all of them actually, I've noticed, like, really teach you different things about how to see, you know. And so it's like, I wish I could do some of those genres a little bit more flowing than others, but it's like it's it's still all those subjects or subject matter or something that I try to do. So thank you very much for saying
That's fine.
that.
No, because as an outsider, to me at least, in my eye, like you do have a certain style, and they are very. It's interesting because sometimes when you see artists who creates landscapes and figurative work, they're both very, very different, and they're like miles apart. But you definitely do have at least a good thread between all of your subject matters, and they all do seem to blend seamlessly, or at least they flow together a little bit better. And actually, curiously, makes so how do you know what so how do you decide what will become a painting? So what makes something worthy of becoming a painting?
Hmm. Of course, those change with like the different, types of subject matter, because there's a little bit of a different way of thinking in terms of whether you want to paint a landscape or a, figure or something like that. But I think the thing that would tie all of it together, even in my still lives, is to make the when you're looking at the painting, it feels, like you're there, basically,
Yeah.
like it is you're immersed in that world of the painting. So it's like the subject matters, even like with figurative stuff, because I'll take a photo session with a model, or I did before the whole COVID thing. But anyway, it's like, and so I would take hundreds of pictures, and the poses that I'm most interested in are ones that I mean, nothing really ostentatious or anything like that, nothing loud or big, but more of like a subtle turn or something like that. And those sorts of things make you feel, that, you could be sitting down, and the person will be standing right there, I don't want to, I don't like art that's so much, I mean, yeah, I mean, not that I don't like art, but I'm less fascinated with art that is more of just an observation of just what's in front of you, instead of like trying to immerse yourself into it. And so, or immerse the viewer into it. And so that to me is the subject worthy part. I mean, the still lives has been something where it's been a challenge to do that. But I mean, it's like I'm trying to set it up where I will see the still life as level as possible with eye level. So it's like, instead of looking down at a still life or something like that, you feel like, you're surrounded by the still life. Um, and so just trying to make it feel like you're immersed in it
Okay,
is,
that's cool. So immersion's definitely a key factor in your work then.
yes, very much. I mean, it's the powerful thing of a painting, because it can be like a movie like experience if it's painted in, correctly. you know
So it's really interesting that you say that you take pictures of, like, particularly, for instance, models, for instance, for your figurative work. But what do you think that art can do that a photo can't?
um I think like artwork as opposed to photos, I think like with photos, the control for the artist, yeah, maybe it's more of an experiential thing for the actual person doing it. But I mean, it's like, uh, with a photo, there is less, the amount of control you have. I mean, essentially, beside, I mean, yes, they have Photoshop and there's ways of developing it like an old film where you can like make some areas look different and all that sort of stuff. There's of course a lot of things like that, but I mean, most of it just comes in with how you frame it, and you just take it, take the picture. But like with art, in terms of you know looking at a subject, it's much more of an act, an interactive process of what you choose is the most important part of the subject matter. And so in that way, you're, once you got your style down or how you paint or something like that, the direction for, of how you want someone to direct their eye, how you want to direct someone's eye, is something that painting, is much more able to do, which I think just becomes much more of an immersive experience for people when they go to museums or when they look at art, because when I go to museums and look at photos, I don't really look at them all that much. I pass by them, of course. It's like, I'm not a photographer, so I mean, it's different, I'm sure a photographer would, I guess, but I mean, my eye will go to something where it's like I can sort of feel the artist's intentionality for, what they deem is important in a picture, rather than just the whole picture itself. you know
Also, I
um,
guess because in many ways the artist has chosen to take the time to paint it as well, whereas in a photograph it's more instantaneous. Like, I'm a photographer myself, so
mm,
I can understand your point of view, because I think with the photography is that is quite instantaneous. Obviously, Photoshop aside, but whereas in
mm.
art's like a lengthy process to
Yeah,
get to that one final image.
yeah. I mean, is there? I mean, just in terms of, just out of my own curiosity, but as a photographer, then is there any part of that photographic experience where it sounds similar to what, the way that,
Well,
you know
absolutely. I think it depends on what kind of photography you are and how you view photography, in terms of, if you're just like taking a picture of the landscape and shooting it just to shoot it, I think that's one thing. But I think if you are creating an image as opposed to
mm,
taking an image, I think they're two very different things. I think it depends on your approach, really.
right. That's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, like, I mean, that's the same with painting as well. So
Absolutely.
which is very, very important. you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about your solo show, Intimate Limbo.
The Intimate Limbo,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you mind talking a little bit about it? Just talk a bit about like how the opportunity came about, because it's a solo show, which is really interesting, and just the kind of images in the exhibition and how they work together.
Yeah. In terms of also Intimate Limbo, it was a 1 month long show.
Ah, okay.
Or was it? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it was about a 1 month. I mean, they were. It was like 1 week. They had 52. It was from Abend Gallery in
Yes. Yeah.
Colorado, Denver, Colorado. A great gallery. They've been helping me a lot actually, or supporting me, and they have their 52 artists or 52 solo shows in 52 weeks. So they would feature an artist for a week, uh, and then leave the work up for the subsequent month. And so I they asked me to do it because there is another organization called Artsy, which helps artists basically find different artistic opportunities. And there was a group show last year, at the end of last year, that Aben Gallery was having for their miniatures show for their Christmas show. And I submitted a piece, and it was basically the silly still life I did of they have it on their website, but it's basically three honey bears, and but I filled them with like Gatorade, different colors of Gatorade, so they were all and it was very silly still life. But the owner of the gallery liked it. They sold it, and he liked it so much that he contacted me and wanted to work with me, and so this was one of the opportunities he offered to me, was to have this solo show. And so that was how I came about to work with Abend Gallery. And when I was thinking about it in terms of what I was concentrating on, I was concentrating on figuratives as well as still lives at the time. I still am, but I mean, you know, and so but I wanted to have both of that element in there. And so it's sort of Intimate Limbo is sort of a play off of just kind of an idea, but within two different subject matters which kind of relate. With the still lives, I just wanted to give it like a sense, like you're in the world of the still life, and so it was a feeling of intimacy through that. And in terms of the figures, just what I had been thinking about was just the whole COVID thing, and how at that time human contact with me was very, very minimal. And so I had to create my own sense of you know how I spent my intimate whatever space, just with myself, and so uh, a lot of the work I created through it, even I mean the nudes and all that sort of stuff. It was in order to just kind of give a sense of poses of people that I've been doing observations of figures that felt a little vulnerable to me, within this like intimate space that you know having to create because of this pandemic. And so it's like it just felt like this kind of weird space to be in, like a limbo. And so that was sort of the idea of the show, was just to kind of encompass like all that sort of sense of dislocation and needing to create like a different sense of how you really relate with yourself and the world and everything like that. um, that was pretty much the backdrop for all those pieces that I created. Even the still life that had like a bit of humor, because I mean, you have to laugh through the whole year in some ways, that just happened. And so, I mean, it was kind of more of like a personal release, you know. I find like that I do that a lot, where it's just like, the most important, not the most important, but the element that I concentrate a lot on in my work is like how I try to convey how I approach like, a piece, at a certain time, as opposed to like, you know, I don't know, just creating, very solid bridges, or something between people. But I mean, like, or not between people, but just in terms of, you know, I'm just, but yeah, anyway, but like with the intimate limbo thing, I mean, I haven't, um, I haven't thought about that show in a long time, because it actually had ended, but it was actually a very personal show in terms of that.
Okay, that's cool. Well, that's nice. It's nice to know that you care about your work enough to consider it more personal, as opposed to just being like, oh, I just made it because I had the opportunity to. So it's nice that with an opportunity, you don't just be like, okay, cool, I'll just create whatever. You just create something that's actually means something to you. Because at the end of the day, art is a very personal pursuit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the thing about, like, with art, I mean, or anything creative, photography as well. I mean, it's like it's a, the creative outlet is a very, I mean, it's a very powerful thing and a very necessary thing for some people. I mean, maybe for everybody, I don't know. Because everyone's creative in their own ways. But I mean, for me, I mean, it's like it's something that is, yeah. I mean, you need to do it, or you need to have it in your life in some way, or you need to express creativity in some way. And yeah, I mean, I think that sort of almost defines, like, an artist, and someone who's not an artist is someone who is able to tap into that in some ways.
Absolutely. And what do you think it means to be a successful artist? And has your idea of success changed since you first started?
Yeah, that's a hard one, because it's like a successful artist is very is the definition of one is very different than being like a master artist or something like that. You yeah, I mean, success in the arts is is very, I mean, I guess, like, I can even really say this is like a really twofold thing, because there's the personal success of it, where you're, feel as if you're the best artist you can be, or if you can get to the point you want to go. And also there's the outside success, because there needs to be, like, if you want to make a living as an artist, you need financial success. And so it's like there's, so yeah, I mean, I, and there's different levels of success, especially
Of
with,
course.
like, I mean, with all of them, but I mean, in terms of the financial one, but I mean, like, yeah, I feel that my definition of success, I guess, to answer the second part before the first, has changed a lot, through art. And it's something that is, you know, I mean, I'm making a living as an artist, so the financial success. I don't know if this is something that is good for your podcast or not, but I mean, like, or your, but I mean, like, in all personal levels, there's I think an artist always contends with the feeling of uh, being successful or not successful.
Of
And so
course.
it's like, the thing is, I've, I feel as, you know, uh, for me being an artist, the success that I have had is that I am making a living off of it,
Yeah.
and it is like something that is like, very rewarding. And, in terms of like the personal success, that one is like, there are times where I feel like I am painting, the way that I want to paint. But there's a lot of times where I don't, and I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, because I mean, it's like it gives you a reason to keep going.
Of course.
I mean, not that it should be the only reason, but I mean, it's like it's definitely a motivating reason. And so I guess I've never actually thought in terms or visualized, what success as like that would be on a personal level, you know, because I mean, the thing with art is like it's a constant level that you're going up, or you can. It's one of those things where it's like you can constantly keep getting better at it, and I mean, in terms of like successful artist, you know, I would say that I'm an artist who's had success, like I said before, um, because I mean, it's like, I mean, especially with like the whole contrast of like inner art world and outer art world. I mean, that those two like really, uh, I think, mess with your idea of what success is or can be.
I guess from the outside, it can be very like, oh, the artist is really successful, but then because you're not doing the work, the idea of success probably doesn't matter to you as much as creating the work it does. Because
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's you see, it's kind of it's there's that, I mean, it's like I noticed that what you've described, I mean, there's different perspectives, of course, you
of
have
course,
when you start doing art, but I mean, it's like what you've described is kind of like the optimal amount of creative like zone you want to be in, where it's just
yeah,
like you got to do the work, it's
yeah,
the important part.
yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, because I imagine that whether you're successful or not, if you're truly dedicated to what you do, you'll still be doing it, even if nobody's looking at your work.
Yeah, yes, that's true too. I mean, I guess there's a certain point where it's just like, once again, pressures from the outside world is like you got to pay bills and all that sort of
Of
stuff. So
course,
there's a certain point where it's just like you got to throw in the towel if you're not like getting it, you know. Um, but yes, you would hope that, even through all that, one would continue doing the work, because it's like, what they need to do. I was talking with a friend before, in terms of arts. He's a writer, and we were talking about how, like, you know you know for some people, doing art or being creative, or however you express that, or writing or whatever, it becomes something where it's like it's just something that you do like breathing,
hmm.
and so it's like it's not something which it's like you even like think about, or after a while, I mean, it's just like I just do it because it's like, I mean, it seems so natural to me, so I mean, yeah, I mean, I think if I could be like that, throughout the whole rest of my days, that would be very successful.
Absolutely,
you
yeah,
know
absolutely.
I mean, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you just want to reach a place of contentness where you're happy doing what you're doing, but also the bills are getting paid. Also, you know, it's like like everybody in life, it's like a compromise between kind of commerce, the kind of commercial side of life, and also the creativity of art.
Yeah, and it's a sad thing that those two things come into conflict. I mean, the way that you've put it, because I mean, the thing is that they are two different worlds.
Yeah, of course.
Don't necessarily have to be in conflict, but I mean, the thing is they are very different. I mean, to me,
Yeah,
they are. You yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that happened, with like the art world. Not to complain about the art world, but I don't know how it like got like what the value what they considered valuable art to be valuable. Because I mean, it's like it's killing the artist.
Of course.
Which is like I mean, it's also supporting the artist too, or the 1% of artists, but I mean, it's like it's also, I mean, it's doing the damage to the artist, which I find kind of weird, because I mean, that's the people that they're who are helping them. I mean, we're supporting them too. Anyway, the art world is strange.
I think it kind of draws a line between accessibility of art and who can afford to buy it and who can't afford to buy it and who can afford to view it and who can't afford to view it.
Yeah,
I think that's really what it does.
Yeah, which is interesting that you say that, because I mean, yeah, it's there's that sort of like idea, I mean, art is for everybody, it's like, this, everyone should have art and all that sort of stuff, but it's I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, because it's true, but I mean, it's not that way,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not that way. It's just like, in order to be a successful artist, you sort of have to play into that, and it affects what you do, which is the sad part about it.
Absolutely. It's like, by letting more people into the art community, it also kind of narrows your slice of it.
Yeah, it's a very select group of artists that become financially successful, like comfortable. And so it's it's sort of a naturally selective process. But yeah, I mean, I mean, the art world does affect like how, I guess, like in some ways, even though I've integrated it to my creative palette, it's like, I mean, it has even affected my choices, when it comes to like how I approach art, in all honesty. I mean, I don't know how it can't, when you're an artist in this world.
I'll ask you one last question, which is a double barrel question, which is, what are you currently working on and where can people find more about you and your work?
Right now, I'm currently working on I'm sort of between big projects. So I've been working on still lives lately, for a gallery in San Francisco, and it's for a group show, and hopefully it's kind of pending approval still, but some still lives for this gallery for a group show that is entitled Delicious, and it basically like works based off of food. And also I'm continuing to do explore my figurative work and everything, but I mean, all that stuff can be found on my website as well as my Instagram. And I've been also working with like another company from the UK, based in the UK, who now have a branch in the States, but they're called the Portrait Agency, and they commissioned me to do portraits, and everything like that. So that's pretty much work that I have, and also I have like several group shows coming up with A-Bend Gallery. Cool. This year.
And what is your Instagram handle for those that may not know?
It is at Calvin Lai Art. So it's CalvinLaiArt.
That's absolutely perfect. Well, Calvin, thank you very much for this. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was very enjoyable talking to you, Eric.
That concludes my interview with Calvin Lai. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments about it, please send me an email at theflyingfruitbowl@gmail.com or via social media sites such as Instagram. The Flying Fruit Bowl audio interviews can be found on a variety of sites such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you would like to support the platform, please consider subscribing, rating, reviewing, or sharing these interviews with friends and family. Also, don't forget to check out www.theflyingfruitbowl.co.uk for daily art inspiration. And if you're a creative, please don't hesitate to get in touch for a chance to be featured or interviewed. Once again, thank you very much for listening. And until next time, folks, please stay safe.